We're watching News 10 ABC at 9 a.m.
Welcome back, everybody. Well, July 4th is come and gone, right? Good reminder now to remind people how much Revolutionary era rich history is right here in the Capital Region, beyond in the North Country. Fort Ticonderoga unveiling some never-before-seen artifacts this year. Recently acquired a brand new collection from a private collector, correct? So we're joined this morning by Dr. Matthew Cagle, the curator up there at the fort. Thanks for coming in.
Absolutely.
So we got a couple muskets here, correct?
Exactly.
I'm using the right word. That's what we're looking at?
These are both muskets. They are part of the Robert Natolo collection,
Okay.
which is a new collection that is being acquired by Fort Ticonderoga. We're almost halfway through the acquisition of this major collection of over 3,000 objects that document the military experience of the colonial and revolutionary world.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff. Very impressive. And you and I were talking about these just a few minutes ago, and I asked you if you could actually tell if these were actually used in a battle, and you said sometimes yes, and this actually has a soldier's name on it.
It does. Part of Robert Natolo's collecting was objects that have direct connections to people, to events, and to experiences. This musket right here is actually engraved with the name of its owner, Charles Reynolds, who at 15 years old enlisted in the Continental Army in 1777, served most of the war at West Point, repairing gun carriages and wagons and all the materiel that the Continental Army needed to wage its war against the British.
And we know this because they're actually records that were actually pretty well preserved.
They're documents
right?
that were preserved. There are objects like these that bear his name and the big stamp US. So we know very clearly who owned this musket ultimately.
But the one below it here came from who?
Yeah, this one is quite interesting because this is actually a British musket, and this is marked to the 20th Regiment of Foot, which is one of the regiments that surrendered with John Burgoyne at Saratoga in October of 1777. So this is one of the weapons carried by British soldiers that invaded New York and surrendered there, one of the most consequential events of the Revolution, and later was marked here on the butt to a New York regiment, showing how American soldiers took these weapons that they'd taken from the British, turned them back on those soldiers.
Now they look awfully similar, but there are any differences between a British musket and what was used here in America?
Yeah, well, these are both types that were used in America. This musket, although it is American in its usage, is actually made of French components.
Okay.
And the American Army relied on French muskets and other supplies and materiel for us to wage our war because we didn't have the manufacturing capacity. Although this collection actually contains what is probably the oldest signed and dated American firearm known from Albany area, dated 1713 at the beginning of the 18th century. It didn't mean we had the capacity to equip thousands of soldiers in the field.
So how can people check these items out?
So these artifacts will be going on display beginning this year. You can come to Fort Ticonderoga. You can see our exhibit Success, the end of the 7 Years' War, where we have some of the weapons from the Robert Natolo collection and other material on display. And over the next few years, as you might well know, the 250th anniversary of the American War of Independence is just around the corner. And each year we will be unveiling new pieces from the collection on display in our
these
exhibits.
are just two, you mentioned, of 3,000. So what are some of the other things that are here that are of interest to get a look at?
When you get a chance to come to Ticonderoga over the next few years as we begin to put this material on display after we catalog it, you'll see everything from military uniforms, rare British and French uniforms from the Revolutionary War period. You'll see jewelry like an original Society of the Cincinnati Gold Eagle made in Paris for Continental officers. We even have a set of jewelry from a loyalist woman who married her husband in British-occupied New York in 1780 in the middle of the Revolutionary War.
And the fort itself is incredible. I haven't been up there in a few years, but we took our kids up there a few years back and they had a blast. So if you've never been, get up there this summer and pay them a visit. It really is something to be seen.
It is. It's incredible, and we'd love to have you.
All right, Dr. Matthew Cagle, thanks so much for coming in. Love to see this stuff. Stay with us. We're back with more local news and weather right after a quick break.